Now it's time for today's perspective on the programme. And for more than 15 years now, Sabrina Krief has followed, studied and fought for the lives of chimpanzees. Now, she studied the endangered species at length, particularly in the forests of Congo and Uganda, and she defends the lives of the apes. Start with the local population, also, of course, with governments, determined that the animals should prosper. She works with her husband as well, Jean-Michel. He's a photographer, and she's a professor herself at the National Museum of Natural History here in France. She studies as well the effects that humans are having on the animal lives as well. Sabrina Krief joining me in the studio. Thanks very much for coming in to talk to us today. First of all, just tell us about the lives of the chimpanzees you're studying. I mean, how precarious are their lives nowadays?
So the chimpanzees that I study are staying in a wild forest in Uganda, and every day we can see how they are threatened. Actually, there are poachers in the forest. We are in a national park, and everywhere in the world, killing and hunting chimpanzees is forbidden. There are some snares, and they got mutilation, so they lost hand and feet. Then we are in national park, but agriculture has eaten all the forests around, and at the border of the park there are tea plantations. And recently, when we start studying this chimpanzee community, we noticed that they have facial deformities. So they have no nose, actually. Their face is very flat. And we wonder what is happening. And actually, we did some genetic study. We check infectious disease. And it seems there is only one reason that can explain that. It's pesticides. Right. That are used in tea plantation and also in maize garden, because chimpanzees are quite often feeding on maize, which is bordering the national park, and likely the mother exposed the babies to the pesticide, and they got facial deformities. So it
sounds like the answer really is humans, isn't it? I mean, it's us who's affecting them, not just from poachers, but from pesticides as well, as you say.
Yeah, this area where there is a very large human population, but also a very high chimpanzee density, is really like a small model about what is happening everywhere, about biodiversity and wild species. It's like a very small model where you have logging, but also deforestation because of agriculture, so loss of habitat. Poaching is for meat, but also sometimes for trafficking infants of chimpanzees. This is not the case in Uganda, and really likely it's why we can study them, because they are not so shy. But everywhere in the world, great apes are threatened by human activities.
Hang on a minute, though. They're supposed to be an endangered species, aren't they? I mean, why is that category, if you like, not protecting them?
I don't know. We are fighting in the field. I think we have tried to alert the whole community, even our government here in France, civil society. I think everybody is convinced that we cannot leave our closest relative disappearing without doing anything. But because of economic reasons, there is a lot of problems that cannot be solved. Actually, the people living close to the national park are very poor. We buy tea at a very low price, and we are not conscious that people who are collecting this tea are paid sometimes €1 for collecting 300 kilograms of tea leaves by day. And of course, they cannot go to the village to buy chicken when they have so small revenue. So if we agree to buy ethical tea, organic tea, and pay a bit more, maybe we can save human life and also chimpanzee and other wildlife.
Yeah. So once again, it's down to humans, isn't it, to make that effort to try and ensure that the chimpanzees can survive.
Yeah, and that's a good news, because maybe we feel guilty, but the good news is that we have the things in our hand to make change. So I sometimes I'm really desperate,
yeah.
but sometimes I think, we try at least.
Yeah.
And also because they are so fascinating. I've been studying the ability to self-medicate. I have seen them using tools for getting food, but not only for communication. They are empathic. They are able to collaborate for hunting, sharing food. So they are so close to us that we need to make it new by other people. So I think it's my job also, because I spend a long time with them to explain how fascinating they are.
What about you yourself and your life and the way you go about doing that research? I mean, presumably you spend quite a lot of time out in the field, as it were, doing that work. And how do you manage to get close enough and that kind of thing to be able to study them?
It's not so easy because, of course, chimps are fearing human beings, so it takes time. For example, these communities that we are now following, monitoring, we start the program 10 years ago, and you shall not feed them. Jane Goodall, who was a pioneer, start giving bananas, but we realize quite rapidly that it's dangerous for them. They can get sick because of us. And so now we just try to come closer and closer. We keep 8 to 10 meters from them, but it's only for them to see that we are not a threat, that they accept us. And I have a wonderful team in the field with 25 Ugandan people coming from the village. So it's also a way to show people living around that national park is not only bringing problem with wild animal crop raiding, but also it can bring revenue and jobs. And that work with the team is something very important for me. It makes also feel like it's a real project with local population.
And you've written a book as well, haven't you, to try and boost the image, or like if the message you're trying to put across? Yeah,
I think the fact that my husband is a photographer is very important because. Of course, I find them beautiful, and I think when you cross a chimp and the way how he's looking into your eyes make you feel very involved and committed, and it's really a way to show how wonderful the tropical forest is, how important it is for them, of course, but for the whole biodiversity, for human beings also, because it's important for our climate, for our medicinal resources, for food, for water, and yes, we hope that the images are the way to communicate to people our passion.
Good. Good to have you on the programme with us today, talking about that passion. Thank you very much, Sabrina Krief, joining us there, who spent many, many years studying chimpanzees. Thanks very much for coming in.